Can the U.S. sanction trade that does not touch the dollar? Section 1. Thesis. Yes. The United States can and does impose secondary sanctions on foreign entities buying Iranian oil, even when transactions are settled entirely in Chinese yuan with zero U.S. dollar involvement, because American law targets the underlying commercial activity, not the currency. This is raw economic statecraft. Washington leverages its market dominance to restrict Iran's trade partners, regardless of payment method. It raises fundamental questions about sovereignty, extraterritoriality, and whether global commerce ultimately bends to might makes right. Section 2. Grounding. The legal and practical mechanism. U.S. sanctions rest on domestic authority, not international treaty. Since 1979, presidents have maintained a national emergency under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, also known as IEEPA. Layered statutes, including the Iran Sanctions Act of 1996, the Comprehensive Iran Sanctions, Accountability, and Divestment Act of 2010, and executive orders such as 13846, empower the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control to designate entities involved in significant transactions in Iranian petroleum. Primary sanctions ban Americans from dealing with Iran. Secondary sanctions reach third countries. A Chinese refinery, tanker owner, or bank can face exclusion from the U.S. financial system, blocked assets, or loss of dollar access if it buys Iranian crude at scale. The trigger is the activity, purchasing, shipping, or refining Iranian oil, not the settlement currency. On April 24, 2026, the United States sanctioned Hengli Petrochemical, based in Dalian, a major so-called teapot refinery processing approximately 400,000 barrels per day, along with roughly 40 shadow fleet vessels. Beijing had shifted much of this trade to renminbi settlements precisely to evade dollar exposure. Yet the Treasury acted anyway. The message is explicit. Currency choice offers limited shelter when the United States deems the underlying revenue stream a national security threat. Section 3. Catalysts. Why Iran? Why now? U.S. policy aims to starve Iran of hard currency oil revenue, which Washington says finances nuclear and missile programs, ballistic missiles, and proxy militias, including Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. This framework spans administrations. It was intensified under Donald Trump between 2018 and 2019 and has been maintained and expanded since. Recent actions coincide with heightened regional tensions and U.S. efforts to curb Iran's shadow fleet workarounds. China remains Iran's largest customer, taking discounted crude via non-Western shipping and renminbi-based deals. The sanctions signal that even sophisticated evasion tactics invite costs. Treasury warnings to banks in China, Hong Kong, the United Arab Emirates, and Oman reinforce the net. This content is brought to you by Bobby Giggs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. Section 4. Real-world stakes. For Iran, sanctions have reduced but not eliminated oil export revenue. Tehran adapts with discounts, barter, and alternative routes, yet chronic pressure strains its economy and limits military funding. For China, this is a direct challenge. As the world's factory and largest oil importer, Beijing resents U.S. interference in its energy security. It accelerates de-dollarization tools, including the cross-border interbank payment system, bilateral currency swaps, BRICS payment initiatives, and gold-backed experiments. Still, the yuan accounts for only a small fraction of global payments. Full insulation remains distant. For global markets, higher friction raises insurance, logistics, and legal costs. Oil flows continue at discounts, but the system fragments. U.S. firms and allies face compliance burdens. Non-compliant actors risk secondary sanctions. Over the long term, this accelerates efforts to build parallel financial architecture, exactly what Washington seeks to slow. For the United States, sanctions preserve leverage without direct military confrontation. Critics call it overreach that undermines trust in the dollar and pushes allies toward alternatives. Supporters argue it is legitimate sovereign policy. No country is obligated to facilitate trade it views as dangerous. Section 5. Contextual clarity. Power, not universal law. No international court or treaty grants the United States global sanctioning rights. Secondary sanctions are controversial precisely because they are extraterritorial. China, Russia and others label them illegal unilateralism that violates sovereignty norms. The United States counters that every nation controls its own economic borders and can withhold its markets as leverage. Enforcement flows from American economic weight. This includes the dollar's reserve status, the depth of U.S. capital markets, and the centrality of U.S.-linked trade, not from global consensus. This is not unique to America. Great powers have long used economic tools for strategic ends. What distinguishes the current era is the dollar's unmatched reach, making U.S. secondary sanctions uniquely effective. De-dollarization as counter. Progress is measurable but incremental. Renminbi oil deals, shadow fleets, and BRICS coordination erode, but do not erase U.S. influence. True insulation would require a credible and liquid alternative payment and reserve system at global scale. That remains years away. Section 6. Conclusion. In practice, the answer to the title question is clear. Yes, the United States can sanction trade that does not involve the dollar. Whether it should, how long it can sustain this policy amid rising multipolarity, and whether alternatives will eventually weaken this tool are the deeper contests unfolding in real time. This is not abstract legal theory. It is live great power competition expressed through commerce, where economic might still writes the most enforceable rules.